I rise on behalf of New Zealand First to also express our grave concern about how this whole matter has been handled. Mr. Speaker, a very serious crime has allegedly been committed against a young 21-year-old woman in this country, and it would appear that this government has wished to just brush it under the carpet and allow it to go unaccounted for, hoping that the media and the public of New Zealand would not become aware of it. However, the media did uncover it, and it has now been fully put out into the public, and the name released also, again with the media going to the High Court and having that overturned to ensure that the name of this individual who is alleged to have committed this crime is known. It is concerning, Mr. Speaker, that there seems to be a litany of errors by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade and also the Minister's office and the Minister himself in terms of handling this. It is somewhat concerning, Mr. Speaker, that still today on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade website, listed under foreign representatives accredited to New Zealand, that this individual, Mr. Mohammed Rizalman, is still appearing on the New Zealand Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade website as an accredited diplomat in this country. So the first thing I would suggest to Mr. Hayes, sitting over there in the back seat, and to Mr. McCulley, would be that perhaps they should suggest that out of respect to the young 21-year-old woman, that that individual's name is at least taken off the New Zealand Ministry of Foreign Affairs website in the meantime. The very least they could do is get on with that. Mr. Speaker, when you look back at the time frame of this whole incident, and the Minister this afternoon said this occurred on the 9th of May 2014, and he was informed, that was a Friday evening, he was informed on Saturday the 10th of May. However, he did not have any subsequent discussions or briefings or updates from the Ministry until last Friday the 27th of June. 7 whole weeks went from one Friday when the offence was committed, 7 whole weeks until the Minister then got a subsequent full briefing last Friday, only because he got wind that the media were onto it. That is most disappointing. And any minister who is aware that a serious crime has taken place in any ministry, regardless of what ministry it is, should have been on top of his game and should have been ensuring that the Chief Executive of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was keeping him fully informed on developments. He doesn't have to interfere, he doesn't have to get involved, he doesn't have to politically intervene, but he should at the very least have ensured that he was receiving regular briefings on how the matter was proceeding. And had that been the case, we probably wouldn't have seen this indecision and this ambiguity that apparently has gone on, that has allowed the Malaysians to infer something out of the discussions and the unofficial discussions, so that they now feel that they're somewhat aggrieved that the chap is wanted back in New Zealand to face the consequences and proper police questioning. And so we've been left in this sort of no man's land of very indecisive decisions being made by both the Ministry, by the Minister, and also by the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister as well has not been on top of his game in this respect. He should have been up with this. This is again one of the many instances of a national minister not properly informing the Prime Minister, and in turn, as happened with the GCSB and as happened last year with the MFAT and as has happened with other ministries, the Prime Minister not making sure that his ministers are properly keeping him briefed and informed. Mr. Speaker, I'm somewhat disappointed by this whole diplomatic situation with Malaysia. I'm the Deputy Chair of the Malaysian Parliamentary Friendship Group. Melissa Lee is the Chairman of that group. We both established that group about a year ago. I did it because my brother is buried in Terendak military camp in Malaysia. When he was killed in Vietnam, the body was flown to Malaysia, and he's buried there. So I have a close connection to Malaysia. I have visited Malaysia on a number of occasions to visit his grave. So I have a close affinity to Malaysia. And I know that over many, many years the Malaysians have had a close relationship with New Zealand, going back to the Colombo Plan, and many students coming in and visiting here and being educated here, including many leading Malaysian politicians who have studied here and subsequently gone back to being leaders in the Malaysian political system. And so we do have a long-standing relationship with Malaysia, and it's very strong. And so this whole incident and the way this has been handled by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and by the Minister of Foreign Affairs is somewhat disappointing, because it very much undermines that whole relationship and stability of the friendship with Malaysia. However, having said that, Mr. Speaker, I am also somewhat disappointed in our police themselves, in that this was a serious crime, and I believe once again perhaps the police should have been far more proactive in terms of ensuring that, again through the Minister of Police, that this situation was informed through the Minister of Police as well, to make sure that the ministers around the cabinet table were aware that this was a potentially serious political situation and also a serious crime against a New Zealand citizen. That did not occur. And again, one does wonder, and we do often have questions raised in this House and around New Zealand, as to what level of political interference does go on within our New Zealand police force, so that things are kept under the carpet, kept under the radar, so that there's no political fallout from it. However, also, Mr. Speaker, I would, through this House, also urge the Malaysian High Commissioner to New Zealand, who I've met on a number of occasions, Her Excellency Ms. Zahid. I'm somewhat disappointed that perhaps she has not taken a greater role as a woman and as a head of a mission in this country, to ensure that this incident was properly investigated and that the person and the perpetrator was properly brought to justice in this situation. And so I would call on the High Commissioner to do what she should do as a woman in a situation like this, and ensure that the young 21-year-old woman has her rightful justice and her day in court here in New Zealand, and so that the New Zealand judicial system can properly take account of this. I'm not doubting that a Malaysian court of inquiry, a military court of inquiry, would be thorough. But I don't believe it is fair for a young New Zealand woman to be put through a situation with having to provide evidence through the New Zealand police to then ensure that her situation is properly represented in a far-off country through a military tribunal. And I think it's only fair that this is brought to justice in this country. So I would implore the High Commissioner and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and indeed the Prime Minister, to say, we are humans here and we are honourable, and the honourable thing is for this gentleman to face a proper judicial process here in New Zealand and to be properly accounted for his actions. Mr. Speaker, we hope this is the last time that we have to have a situation like this with ministers going AWOL. It's such a shame that so much time is being spent by both the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of Trade jet-setting around the world to try and get a seat on the Security Council, spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of New Zealand's taxpayer money to try and get a seat on the Security Council, while back at home the basics of humanity, the basics of ensuring that we live in a civil society where such crimes are not perpetuated on our society, on our citizens, is not being upheld. And I think those ministers should perhaps spend a little bit more time overseeing their ministries, overseeing what's happening and functioning within their ministries, and a little bit less time in the first-class cabins of 747s and aircraft around the world on the junket trips, and spend a little bit more time back in New Zealand making sure that New Zealanders are also protected in terms of foreign affairs and trade on our home patch. So New Zealand First registers its strong disappointment in the manner that this whole situation has been handled, and we would like to see it resolved very, very swiftly and expeditiously.
The Honourable Tim Grosson. I understand this will be a 10-minute call.
Mr. Speaker,
I think that the Minister has outlined the facts as we know them in a clear way.